Well, this is a new badge of Dacia, essentially. Oh dear, that is real plastic. I kid you not. Just admire the metallic rear door. Hello everyone, over here is the Dacia Spring. Now in certain parts of the world it is marketed as the Renault Kwid. Now it's a very interesting development, guys, because the Renault Kwid was built primarily for the market like India and Brazil, and also the Chinese market, everyone. Now the philosophy of the Dacia brand was to always have simplicity. The idea was that less would go wrong if there were less equipment or less fancy gadgets. This is proven, guys. Sometimes the less fancy gadgets you have, the more reliable of a car you have. But did this always hold true for Renault-Nissan alliance overall, including the brands like Dacia? It remains mysterious, guys. It's a hit or miss. Sometimes it wasn't really successful, whatever they tried. No matter how basic you go, they were not always reliable, especially for Renault, and for including new cars one day and then discontinuing them the next day. They had a reputation for doing revolutionary designs, revolutionary things, everyone. But they did not always hold when it comes to quality, guys. Dacia, unfortunately, was a victim in this few years ago. Now, I'm very optimistic to tell you all that things are changing, especially in wake of how big the Renault alliance has become. Impression, everyone, the Dacia Spring. It looks really interesting how they've gone about it. I really like the design. It, in fact, from certain angles, I don't know if it's just me, but it reminds me of the Renault 4, the Renault 4. The Renault 4 was a classic Renault model in the A segment, something that would be a direct competitor to the Citroën 2 chevaux. For a price of 22,000 euros, is this Dacia Spring good value for money or not? We're going to find out in a moment, everyone. Now the whole rear, the way it's designed, it has some very strong Renault vibe to it. In fact, the rear lights resemble somewhat the Renault Clio. And then if you look at this design right here, it does resemble other Renault models. It reminds me of the Scenic, and it also does remind me of the Clio. The front design of the Dacia Spring has maintained a lot of similarity to other existing Dacia models, like the Dacia Sandero, primarily speaking, guys, especially with the front. Now Dacia has adopted a new front design, a new front style, the white X right there, and then well, this is a new badge of Dacia, essentially, and I think it's a big step ahead for Dacia. And then you get the white lines right here. Looks really, really interesting. It reminds me of the grips of a tire, and it's interesting they've gone down this route, because I went to the Brussels Auto Show and I couldn't help but notice Dacia's obsession with rally style concept cars. Is your evidence that this is indeed electric, everyone? So both the bonnet and this recharge cap can be only opened from the interior of the Dacia Spring. So over here, guys, there you go, the plug-in for your electric Spring. And over here is your evidence that this is indeed electric. Now I have to confess that for an electric car, I couldn't help but notice that the bonnet is a bit heavy for such a small electric car. 5-spoke alloys, everyone. Now whilst exploring the exterior of the Dacia Spring, I noticed some questions, guys. Now there was no parking sensor at the front and no parking camera at the front. You only get parking sensors and a camera at the back, guys. Now the absence of parking cameras and parking sensors is a common practice with A and B segment cars. But for a price of 22,000 euros, let alone at an electric car, it would be pleasant to have some extra goodies, at least a sensor at the front. Yes, it is time to explore the interior of the Dacia Spring, everyone. The door is very light. That's something that's actually quite remarkable. It's super light and pleasant. It's good. Now, whether this is an indication about the quality of the car, you all be the judge, but for an A segment, that's perfectly fine. But what's not really fine is that I don't get a handle right here to help myself when I get inside. So I have to rely on the roof, or I have to rely on the steering wheel. The steering wheel is rather pleasant, guys. Let me just close the door. Okay, so one thing I really like about the interior is that it's very narrow, so it's very good for maneuverability in the city, everyone. And I really like just the overall presentation. Just look at this. Now, let me just put my seatbelt on, because whenever I put my seatbelt on, I feel more connected. So what I have to say is that it feels really, everything's at your reach. Okay, so arm length. So let's say I can stretch my arm. I can reach this edge right here. So it's really good. The size of the steering wheel is appropriate for this segment. It's perfectly fine. I like the design also. You get this sort of gear knob right here. This is really interesting. And then handbrake right here. It's a classic handbrake. For the rest of the interior, Dacia has stuck to some classics, guys. They've stuck to knobs like these instead of having buttons. And this is also the philosophy of Dacia. It's always been about maintaining basics, not indulging into fancy technology, fancy buttons, dual zone climate controls and everything. Now, it should be remarked that for a price of 22,000 euros, the interior is acceptable, especially for standards of an electric car, and that too in the A segment. The interior of the Dacia Spring, everyone. Yes. Now let's talk about the seating, guys. You get leather seats throughout the interior, which is a very big surprise. Despite the basic looking exterior, the leather seat is quite pleasant. And now don't expect top-notch quality. The acoustics is very pleasant, everyone. It's I don't hear my voice echoing in the interior, so that's a very pleasant sign. This is a very typical Nissan Renault layout. I've noticed they both like to put air vents all the way above, infotainment in the middle, climate controls down here, and then you get your central lock buttons right here. Your window buttons are at the middle right here. This is traditional for an A segment car, and that's why the doors are light, and that's why there's almost nothing happening onto the door. And when I say nothing, I also mean practicality, guys. Now, for an A segment car, practicality is a very difficult topic to discuss about, but we will still cover it nonetheless, everyone. So, no USB point at my site here, but I do see a 12-volt socket right there. And then for some reason, there are some additional driving controls isolated down there. As we mentioned practicality, we have to cover it. So, let's check out this glove box, because this glove box looks like the most promising. The glove box is rather deep. Now, that's a very good surprise to be having, but oh my gosh, look at this. Oh, yeah, the plastic, guys. Oh dear, that is real plastic. I kid you not. Anyway, the door bin is quite pleasant. It's I don't know if it can fit a big water bottle, but it's not very long either. I mean, to be honest, I was not really expecting much when it comes to practicality, but it is good. Take a look at the steering wheel. It looks very pleasant and it feels quite pleasant. The feel is good. It's average for its segment and everything. And surprisingly, this has to be one of the best steering wheels for the A segment, because most A segment competitors tend to give you 3-spoke steering wheels. But Dacia has been rather generous in this case. Now, one thing that's not very generous of Dacia, and I believe the Renault-Nissan Alliance, is the price of 22,000 euros. There's still buttons missing on the steering wheel. Alright. Here's your latch for the plug cap and the bonnet, everyone. One thing that's worth remarking, guys, is that you do not get a start-stop button. You do get an ignition, guys. This is the first time I've ever seen an electric car with a key ignition. It's time to explore the rear seat of the Dacia Spring. Let's see if it's just as pleasant as Spring. So, alright everyone, the rear seat of the Dacia Spring. I have to say, first of all, knee room is limited, not surprisingly. My leg room is quite limited as well, not surprisingly. But my headroom, I've got quite a good number of headroom, guys. And now when it comes to practicality solutions, guys, you get this nice pocket right here. This pocket is really deep. That's the best practicality solution you get for the rear seat, guys. Otherwise, there's no rear door pocket, rear door bin, guys. And as for the rest of the rear seat, there is no armrest or anything. So yes, it's really basic. See for yourself. For an A segment car, there were some things that were not surprising. I didn't mind about that. But you do not get any lighting for the rear, and you do not get any handle for the rear passengers. So whenever the ride gets bumpy, you will have to depend on the door. Now it is time to explore the boot space of the Dacia Spring, everyone. Now, interesting concept, just a little button right here and opens the boot. Hydraulic push, guys, very interesting. Now, boot space is actually surprisingly spacious for its segment, really nice, guys. Now, this can be removed easily and the space is good. Now, do not expect much technology. Do not expect much in the back, guys. There's no 12-volt socket, or I don't see any tether point, guys. Yes. We take a moment and just admire the metallic rear door. Looks amazing, guys. I like it. Now, the presence of a metallic rear door is quite common in the A segment cars because it reduces costs. There's so little technology required for the rear doors, like electric door buttons or such, which is why car manufacturers prefer to keep it basic, because first, it's good for the aesthetics, it's good for the styling and everything, and second, production cost saving, guys. It saves a lot of money for everyone. How wonderful is this? And I like the way the Renault, Nissan and Dacia have gone on about this. Here are my conclusions of the Dacia Spring, everyone. The Dacia Spring feels like summer sometimes, because you see, what I like is that in the summer, you get a light car and get to drive in the sunshine on a hot day, guys. Just enjoy the city, just enjoy the highway, something light. Sometimes there's a saying that less is more. However, on the topic of the Dacia Spring, it did feel like winter or autumn. It did feel like autumn in some senses, a rainy autumn. And I'm going to tell you in what sense. Namely, the quality, I'd say. Because you see, the thing is, for a price of 22,000 euros, I would say it is good value for money. It's not the best, but it's not the least. It just seems average to me, but I'd say on the good zone, because you see, the style is there. It does seem to have a lot of Twingo vibe to it. Then we should step back and take a look at the big picture. The big picture, the big painting I see is that this is an A-segment electric car worth 22,000 euros, and it is almost unheard of. It is very rare we stumble across something like this in the EU market. But guys, I still have to express my opinion of this Dacia Spring. I love Spring, guys. I really do. I love the Dacia Spring. The Dacia Spring is one of the most promising A-segment electric cars in today's generation, and I found it quite interesting how Renault has decided to bring it here to the EU market, guys. That's actually a very good decision, and I think this is a really good idea, because now we're going to get a diversity of electric cars. We're going to see new Renault models of various sizes, whether combustion engine or electric, guys. And this time also over here, we have a choice that is unique, guys. So we have the Renault Twingo, and now we have the Dacia Spring, which is also known as the Renault Kwid in certain parts of the world. And that too. And believe me, guys, for Brussels, for Paris, or for all major cities in the EU market, for all major cities in the EU, and not even necessarily in the EU, sometimes around the world, sometimes it's best to have a car like this. Trust me, very easy to park, very easy to live with, very easy to... And that too, this is certainly good for the environment, because it is electric. However, I do believe it's not enough to have new initiatives or have a new project and something flamboyant, guys. I also believe it's enough to stick to something, guys. Stick to a promise which you make. Renault has a reputation of starting new projects all the time. They always have something new, and then after a few years, they stop it. They do it in the favor of something else. I really wish that Renault and Nissan stick to this. They've started it, now they have to stick to it and make it better, improve on it, like they did with the Twingo. This is very promising, and this is a new chapter for the Renault-Nissan alliance, because now we're witnessing Dacia stepping up. Keep it up, Dacia. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and stay tuned for more videos that are on the run, everyone. And please let me know in the comments what your thoughts are of the Dacia Spring. Do you prefer the Dacia Spring, also known as Renault Kwid, or do you all prefer the Renault Twingo? Or do you all prefer other A-segment electric cars, something like the Fiat 500e, you name it? Let me know in the comments what you all think. I'll see you all next time.